Rex quickly covered his body with his rock armor. The monkey-like creature's hands with sharp nails were now covered in a blue glow and swiped at his neck. Crack! The fingers of the monkey-like creature with its blue glow plunged into his rock armor, and pieces of the rock cracked into pieces. Rex tried to get it away from him, and he swung his arm at the monkey-like creature. Thud! His arm was stopped by the monkey-like creature with its other two hands. The monkey-like creature pulled out its hands from Rex's neck and tried to stab into Rex's neck again. But before it could do so, the monkey-like creature felt something was pulling its arms away from Rex, and it struggled to break free. The monkey-like creature glanced around, trying to see who was grabbing onto its arms, but couldn't see anyone around. Gee! Gee! It gave out a cry in pain when the pull on its arms didn't stop. And the next moment, more pain could be felt as the monkey-like creature saw its arms being ripped out from its body. Blood splattered and dripped onto the ground. Rex made use of this opportunity, and he gave the monkey-like creature a headbutt. Thud! The impact from his headbutt caused the monkey-like creature to be stunned momentarily. It was enough for Lucas to make his next move with his Shadow Wielder ability. His shadow held onto the head of the monkey-like creature, and with a forceful pull, he ripped out the head of the monkey-like creature from its body. Having gotten rid of the monkey-like creature, Rex turned his focus back to helping Emma. He pulled his spiky rock whip, which was still wrapped around the arms of the monkey-like creature that was attacking Emma. The tug from Rex's spiky rock whip gave Emma an opportunity to take in a deep breath and breathe out a cloud of red poison smoke right in the face of the monkey-like creature. When the cloud of red poison smoke came into contact with the bright orange-colored monkey-like creature, the poison started to work its way through the fur and skin of the monkey-like creature. Emma could see the fur and skin of the monkey-like creature was dissolved by the poison like metal. The fruits must have given the monkey-like creature different abilities, she thought. Gee! Gee! As the monkey-like creature screamed out in pain, Emma gave it a kick and sent the creature hurling away. The monkey-like creature tumbled through the ground and stopped after it hit a tree. It tried to get back up onto its feet, but it soon realized that it couldn't. Its head and limbs were held on by something. Lucas had used his Shadow Wielder ability to do so. Gee! 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 As his shadow pulled, the monkey-like creature started screaming in its low, guttural voice. It didn't do much, and soon the screams were muffled by the gasping of air mixed with bubbling sound when its head was slowly ripped out from its body. Meanwhile, when Lucas was dealing with the monkey-like creatures attacking Rex and Emma, Haryanto, who was standing next to Lucas, was also busy. When Haryanto saw two monkey-like creatures coming at them, he aimed his plasma cannon at the two monkey-like creatures. These two monkey-like creatures, which were now a bright red color, had their bodies engulfed in bright flames the next moment. They lunged towards Haryanto like two cannonballs. Bam! Haryanto fired his plasma cannon at the monkey-like creatures. The monkey-like creatures seemed to be anticipating it, and they changed the direction of their flight towards Haryanto. One shot diagonally up above the air, and the other lunged downward towards the ground. Both came at Haryanto from two different heights next. Whoosh! Haryanto shot out two mechanical snakes from his body armor at the two monkey-like creatures. But the mechanical snakes could only coil onto the creatures for a few moments. The high temperature from the flames fried and melted them down. Haryanto then tried to leap back to get away from them. By now, Lucas was done with the monkey-like creatures attacking Emma and Rex, so when he saw what was happening, he quickly reacted. Thud! An ice wall rose and blocked the two monkey-like creatures in their path towards Haryanto. The two monkey-like creatures with their flames weren't able to get through the ice wall, only able to chip off and melt a little ice off it. Gee! They gave out a cry in anger. The flames engulfing their bodies became bigger, rising up to twice what it was. The two monkey-like creatures turned their attention to Lucas. Wham! Riley, who was on the other side of Lucas, unleashed a lightning strike at the monkey-like creatures. The lightning strike hit, causing an explosion. However, it didn't do much damage, and the two monkey-like creatures stood with the flames shimmering for a moment. Their flames burned brightly again when they got out of the shock from the lightning strike. They turned toward Lucas. But before they could attack him, chills surrounded them. Ice crystals appeared in the surroundings. Their flames shimmered, and when they tried to get the flames burning brightly again, they couldn't. All they felt was the cold. Ice pillars rose from the ground, and the temperature turned sub-zero. Their legs were caught in the ice pillars and froze into ice sticks. "Gee!" They cried out and tried to get away. With their feet stuck, they weren't able to do so. Soon, the ice crept up slowly from their feet to their body. The two monkey-like creatures knew they had no choice. Crack! Using their arms, they shattered their frozen legs into pieces. It was in vain. When they landed onto the ground, their bodies froze upon contact with the ice pillar and the ice covering the ground. The ice palace slowly did its work, rising and finally forming into a grand palace made of ice. "Gee!" The remaining 8 monkey-like creatures shouted in anger at Lucas. They turned and focused on him. Seeing what Lucas had done, they had deemed Lucas to be their biggest threat. Without any warning, these monkey-like creatures lunged at Lucas at the same time. "Lucas!" Riley, Rex, Emma, Harrianto, and Margaret shouted when they saw the monkey-like creatures lunging at Lucas all at once. They did what they could with their abilities. Wham! Riley unleashed his lightning strike at one of the monkey-like creatures. The monkey-like creature, which was in blue-colored fur, turned into a pool of water and splashed onto the ground, dodging his lightning strike. Wielding his spiky rock whip, Rex tried to stop the monkey-like creatures. But his spiky rock whip was stopped by one of them which had brown-colored fur. Sand and rocks rose from the ground and enveloped his spiky rock whip, trapping it within. Emma hurled out 2 poison nets, but they were met with vines that grew from the ground. The vines stopped the poison nets by forming a wall. Seeing how all their attempts failed, Harrianto prepared to get Lucas out of danger. He watched intently, ready to get into action at any moment. But it wasn't required. When the hands of the monkey-like creatures got near Lucas, trying to slice him into pieces with their sharp nails, everyone gasped. Lucas activated his Ether Realm ability next, before they could even touch him. And right in front of the monkey-like creature's eyes, Lucas disappeared. They got agitated with what had happened. The monkey-like creatures glanced around but couldn't see any sign of Lucas. "Gee! Gee!" They shouted in anger, and their low, guttural shouts echoed through the forest. Other demonic beasts then responded with their roars in the other parts of the forest. With the anger inside them and Lucas disappearing, the monkey-like creatures turned their attention back to the others. But before they could do so, they felt their fur covering their bodies stand up. Flickers of bright lightning appeared above them. They looked up and saw pillars of lightning that had formed in the air. It was then their turn to hurl whatever they had at the pillars of lightning. Water spouts shot at the lightning, with the monkey-like creature desperately trying to slice up the pillars of lightning. But the water spout reacted with the pillars of lightning and made it more volatile instead. Other monkey-like creatures hurled boulders and spears made of soil at the pillars of lightning. The boulders cracked into pieces, and the soil was turned into molten glass immediately when they came into contact with the pillars of lightning. It was worse for the vines trying to reach up into the air. The vines were burnt the moment they came close to the pillars of lightning. "Gee! Gee!" The monkey-like creatures began to panic and tried to scatter away from where they were. It was, however, too late for them. Lucas, who had emerged out from his ether realm some distance away, waved his hands down. The pillars of lightning descended down upon the monkey-like creatures. The monkey-like creatures tried with all their might to leap away but couldn't. Their last glimmer of hope was gone when the pillars of lightning surrounded them and formed into a cage. It got worse when the lightning cage slowly reduced its size. Sizzle. The lightning cage burnt and electrocuted those monkey-like creatures when they came into contact with the lightning cage. The monkey-like creatures were already back-to-back a few moments later. But it was not over, as the lightning cage was still closing in. Finally, all that you could hear were the cries of the monkey-like creatures. Smoke and the smell of charred flesh from the monkey-like creatures filled the air. When it was all over, Lucas stood and glanced over at the others. He felt relief when he saw everyone was all right, except for some minor injuries. Nothing that Margaret couldn't fix. A familiar sound then erupted in his mind. Ding! Slaughter points plus 8,400. Current slaughter points 16900/80,000. Host level 8. Current abilities 8. He saw that he had enough to upgrade one of his abilities to expert level of mastery. Lucas pondered for a moment, and he thought about upgrading the Ether Realm or Crimson Pact ability. These two abilities had proved their worth, being more than useful so far, and he would like to see how much more powerful they would get when upgraded. More information about these two abilities appeared in his mind. Improvements in expert level of mastery, SSS level Ether Realm. Host would be able to bring those who he was holding on to when he enters the Ether Realm. Ether Realm at expert level of mastery allows for Host to stay within for 3 minutes. Improvements in expert level of mastery, SSS level Crimson Pact ability. Allows Host to have two abilities at the same time through the blood of other awakened. The usage of the ability through the Crimson Pact would last for 10 minutes. Lucas thought about it and decided to go for the upgrade of the Ether Realm. He himself already had many abilities as it is. The upgrade of the Crimson Pact didn't seem as attractive as the Ether Realm. He thought about upgrading the Ether Realm ability and said yes silently. A familiar sound erupted in his mind again. Ding! Congratulations on upgrading SSS level Ether Realm to expert level of mastery. A gust of energy came into his body with the knowledge on how to use the new ability for Ether Realm. Damn these pesky demonic beasts. Can't they give us a break? Rex shouted and kicked at the pile of ashes of the dead monkey-like creatures. Riley and the others nodded. The heat and humidity of the forest was already bad, and coupled with the attacks from weird and horrific demonic beasts, made it much worse. It was taking a toll on them mentally. Margaret went on to heal the wounds on Rex and Emma. Lucas took out energy bars and passed them to the others. They took a bite while Lucas checked on the others. Kevin, everything all right over there? Lucas spoke into his earbuds. Fine so far over here. What's the situation over there? Heard some commotion and got worried, Kevin asked. Encountered some demonic beasts, but it's all under control now. Lucas then tried to contact Terry's team. Terry, everything all right over there? Silence. There was no reply. He quickly tried again. It was the same. Dead silence. Lucas frowned and glanced in the direction of where Terry's team was. Lucas decided to go and check on Terry and his teammates. Riley wanted someone to go with Lucas, but he decided against it. He was worried that there might be a surprise attack on Riley and the others by the demonic beasts. With his Ether Realm ability and his myriad of other abilities, Lucas was confident that he would be able to remain unscathed. Keep in contact with the earbuds and let us know if you need assistance. Riley knew Lucas was right and he relented. Lucas didn't waste any time and used his gravity ability to move through the trees and vegetation swiftly. When he arrived at where Terry and his teammates were supposed to be, they were nowhere to be seen. Lucas glanced around at the surroundings. There were no signs of any battle. No fallen trees, no debris or blood on the ground. It was like they had disappeared from the forest. Lucas looked back from where they came from. Same thing. There was no indication that Terry and his teammates went back the other way. There were only two possibilities left for him to check. Forward or to the left. Lucas decided to check ahead first. He flew slowly above ground, trying to see from above whether he could spot Terry and the others. It was after around 200 feet that he saw something. A bright reflection from something that was metallic shined into his eyes. Lucas stopped, deactivated his gravity ability and got onto the ground to check what it was. When he got to the ground, he saw that the item that reflected the sunlight into his eyes was Lynn's sword. And from what he knew of Lynn, she would never leave her sword unattended lying on the ground. Something must have happened. He picked up the sword to see if there was any blood on the blade. Nothing. Either there wasn't any battle or the enemy got to her before she could attack. Riley and Kevin, be on the alert. Terry's team is missing, and I found Lynn's sword on the ground. Lucas spoke into his earbuds, updating them on what he had found out. We will do so, Riley and Kevin replied. Lucas then continued further ahead. Rustle. When he took a few steps, he heard the rustling of the plants on his side. Lucas took a step again, and right on cue he heard a rustle. Next Lucas took another step, but this time he used his ice ability, and the ice extended from the ground towards where the rustling sound came from. Let go! A child's voice pleaded. It came from where the rustling sound was. Lucas entered his ether realm and got through the vegetation. When he got to where the rustling sound was, he was astonished by what he saw. The voice came from something. He saw a figure struggling to break free from the ice that had frozen the figure's legs. Its body was like an adult human's, with limbs that were different lengths, and its head was however like a small child's. When he got closer to inspect carefully, he saw that the figure's head and limbs were stitched together with very crude string, most likely made from coconut husks, and from his vision within the ether realm, Lucas saw that at the heart of the stitched-up man was an illuminated red hue in the form of an insect-like creature. Lucas appeared at the back of the stitched-up man and asked, "Who are you? And where are Terry and the rest?" The stitched-up man started to give out a high-pitched growl with a kid's voice and spoke random words. Milk, heaven, food. As the stitched-up man spoke, Lucas could see that the insect-like creature moved and squeezed onto the heart of the man. Lucas figured that the insect-like creature was a demonic beast that was parasitic, and the stitched-up man was already dead. His conclusion was confirmed in the next moment. Crack. He heard the stitched-up man's spine crack, and it turned its body 180 degrees to face him. And with the spine being fractured, the stitched-up man used its hands to tear its upper body off the lower portion. Help me! The stitched-up man crawled towards Lucas with both of its hands. Lucas lifted his leg and stomped it onto the ground. Ice extended from his feet towards the stitched-up man. The stitched-up man swung its arms at Lucas. Whoosh! The arms tore off its body and flew towards Lucas. Lucas used his shadow and deflected the arms to the side. Arg! When the stitched-up man saw what happened, it opened its mouth wide. A red insect-like creature with 6 legs and 2 short antennae crawled out of the stitched-up man's mouth and lunged at Lucas. Boom! Lucas punched at it with his fist, giving out a loud boom as it broke through the air. The insect-like creature didn't even get close to Lucas before it was decimated by the air wave that shot out from his punch. His strength and reaction at level 8 were too much for the insect-like creature. If it were other awakened, they would have fallen prey to such a cunning demonic beast. Which might be what happened to Terry and his teammates. The insect-like demonic beasts must have lured them with their voices and led them somewhere else. A familiar sound erupted in his mind. Ding! Slaughter points plus 700. Current slaughter points 8600/80,000. Host level 8. Current abilities 8. Lucas, is everything all right? We heard some commotion. Riley's voice came into his earbuds. Lucas replied, "Everything is all right for me. Terry and his teammates might have been tricked." He went on to brief the others about what he had encountered. "Those bastards," Kevin said angrily. Even though he was jostling with Terry to build good rapport with Lucas, he wasn't one to not recognize Terry as a fellow awakened. They were after the same goal after all. And that was to rid mankind of all these pesky demonic beasts. Lucas walked over to the body of the stitched-up man. It lay motionlessly, and within minutes, he saw the flesh of the man decay and turn into a puddle of putrid dark liquid. Lucas covered his nose with his hand and looked ahead. He saw that not too far away, some of the plants were flattened, a sign that someone had passed through. He walked ahead on alert towards the area. There was nothing unusual that happened. Beads of sweat rolled down from his forehead. He wiped the sweat and looked up at the sun shining through the thick canopy. It was not so much from the heat of the sun but the stuffy air and humidity of it all. Lucas continued on his way, and he saw a ravine right ahead. And at the edge of the ravine he saw a few trails. It looked like something was dragged down the ravine. Lucas came up to the edge of the ravine slowly, ready to go into his ether realm at any moment. Fortunately, nothing happened as he peered over the edge of the ravine. The ravine ran deep and wide. He could see that it was at least 15 feet deep and stretched at least a mile wide. The sun couldn't reach the bottom of the ravine, and it was dark underneath. Plop! Lucas leaped into the ravine and landed on the moist and slippery ground. He took out his flashlight from his dark matter vault armor and clipped it to a strap on his shoulder. Bugs and insects appeared in his vision the moment he turned on the flashlight and shined it onto the wall of the ravine. They scurried away from the light immediately. Lucas then shined the flashlight onto the ground and saw the trails that were on the edge of the ravine continued at the bottom of it. He followed the trails and walked towards a part of the ravine that looked like a dead end from afar. As he got closer, he realized that it wasn't a dead end. It was a cave leading deep down inside the ravine wall. Lucas spoke into his earbuds and briefed the others on where he was. "I'm at the bottom of a ravine. The trails left behind led to a cave under the ravine. I'll be going in to check if it was Terry and his teammates." "Be careful," Riley replied. Riley and Kevin's team were now together at the same location. They had decided that it was too dangerous to be apart. After Lucas reported on his location, they started moving towards the ravine. Lucas then stepped into the dark cave. Inside the cave, all he could hear was the sound of running water in the distance. He followed the trails slowly for around 50 feet before the trails disappeared. There was an ascent in front of him. Whatever it was that made the trail, they were most likely carried over to the top of the ascent. Lucas leaped and got to the top of the ascent. And when he looked down from where he was shocked. There were a dozen men and women, carrying Terry and his teammates, who were all unconscious, towards a platform made of rock. These men and women walked in a clumsy way as their limbs were all of different lengths. They must have been like the stitched-up man he had encountered earlier, he thought. But why were they putting Terry and his teammates onto the rock platform? Lucas scanned the surroundings and memorized the terrain. He continued to observe what these men and women would do next. They knelt and waited beside the rock platform, as if they were waiting for someone. The sound of the underground running water echoed in the cave. Time passed and Lucas focused on what was happening at the rock platform. Finally, a few pieces of rocks fell onto the rock platform from above. Lucas quickly looked up and saw a huge white-colored worm slowly descending from the ceiling. As it got closer to one of Terry's teammates, Mina, it opened its mouth. Strands of very fine lines that looked like string lowered down from its mouth. Lucas knew he had to act fast. He entered his ether realm and ran towards the rock platform. When he got near enough, he appeared and pulled Mina out of the way. His appearance caught the huge white worm by surprise. Whoosh! The fine lines from the huge white worm's mouth moved and came at Lucas. Some of the fine lines came across the surface of the rock platform and they sliced through the rock platform with a clean cut. Before the fine lines could touch Lucas, he entered his ether realm again with Mina. The next moment, both disappeared from the sight of the huge white worm and the stitched-up men and women. Lucas brought Mina back up to the top of the ascent. He placed him onto the ground, and he leaped down to where the rock platform was again. The huge white worm squirmed around and the men and women got to work. They tried to look for Lucas in the surroundings. Thud! When Lucas appeared again, he kicked one of the stitched-up men. His kick plunged through the body of the stitched-up man and broke him into two halves. Other stitched-up men and women came at Lucas from the sides. But unfortunately for them, he was ready. Ice pillars rose from the ground. The ice pillars brought with them sub-zero temperature, and the stitched-up men and women coming at Lucas were frozen in an instant when they came into contact with the ice pillars. Whoosh! Lucas saw strands of fine string coming at him from above, and he quickly got into his ether realm again. The strands of fine string missed, but they went on and sliced through the ice pillars and some of the stitched-up men and women. The ice pillars were shredded into pieces together with the stitched-up men and women. Meanwhile, Lucas had come to the rock platform, appeared and held on to Carlo and Damien. The next moment, he disappeared into his ether realm with them. The huge white worm squirmed again in anger, and this time it used its strands of fine string to slice all the stitched-up men and women apart. After that, it dropped onto the ground, causing the cave to tremble. The huge white worm thrashed around and the limbs, heads and bodies of those stitched-up men and women got stuck onto its body. They slowly disappeared into the soft body of the huge white worm. His body started to wriggle. Finally, the huge white worm opened its mouth. This time something eerie came out. A stitched-up creature made up of many heads, bodies and limbs hobbled out from the mouth of the huge white worm. The stitched-up creature lifted its body high up and saw Damien, Carlo and Mina that Lucas had saved from the rock platform. It gave out a cry that was made up of several voices. Whoosh! The stitched-up creature came at Damien, Carlo and Mina. But before the stitched-up creature could get near, Lucas appeared right in front of it. He pulled back his arm and punched at one of the heads on the stitched-up creature. Bladder. Lucas's jab that emitted an airwave was enough to make the head explode into a splatter of flesh, blood and gray matter. It was however not enough to stop the stitched-up monster. He pulled back his arms and wanted to punch at the heads. Thud. The hands on both sides of the stitched-up monster's huge body grabbed onto Lucas's arms. Lucas twisted his body to the side and with a pull of his arm, some of the hands tore out from the body of the stitched-up monster. The stitched-up monster tried to grab onto him again with its remaining arms. This time the arms were ripped out from the body of the stitched-up monster one by one. With the light from his flashlight, Lucas made use of his shadow to split into two and tore the arms out from the stitched-up monster. Tremble. The huge white worm appeared next to the stitched-up monster, and it swung its strands of fine string towards Lucas. Lucas disappeared in the next moment. He went into his ether realm again. The stitched-up monster and huge white worm turned their attention to Damien, Carlo and Mina, who were lying not too far away from them. They wanted to move and strike at Damien, Carlo and Mina, but the temperature of the cave suddenly became lower. Ice crystals formed in the air, and with the humidity in the cave, the surface in the surroundings became covered with a layer of thick ice immediately. Pillars of ice rose from the ground where the stitched-up monster and huge white worm were located. The legs of the stitched-up monster were frozen upon contact with the ice pillars. It slowly stopped moving as the ice extended up onto its body and covered the stitched-up monster in a thick wall of ice. By its side, the huge white worm squirmed and turned around trying to get away from where it was. However, Lucas was waiting for it at the back. He raised his hands and flickers of lightning appeared above the huge white worm. 3 pillars of lightning descended onto the body of the huge white worm. Lucas feared that if he used the full power of the lightning prison, he might trigger a cave-in, and it would then endanger the lives of Terry and his teammates. Bladder. The soft body of the huge white worm splattered out its white flesh when the pillars of lightning hit it. Strands of fine string extended longer from the huge white worm's mouth, and it lashed the strands of fine string towards Lucas. Frustratingly for the huge white worm, it saw Lucas disappear once more. It wriggled with its body that was now punctured with 3 holes by Lucas's pillars of lightning and smashed itself onto the ice pillars that were trapping the stitched-up monster within. Crack. Some of the ice pillars cracked under the force from the huge white worm. The huge white worm wanted to smash at the frozen, stitched-up monster to free it, but before it could do so, ice pillars rose from the ground. Parts of the huge white worm's body stuck onto the ice pillars, and these parts froze immediately. The huge white worm swung the strands of fine string that came out from its mouth around. Crack. The strands of fine string sliced through the ice pillars effortlessly. It then wriggled and moved away from where it was, tearing its flesh off the ice in the process, as if it felt no pain from it. Lucas was waiting, and when he appeared at the side of the huge white worm, he unleashed a torrent of punches at the huge white worm. Bladder. As his fist broke through the air, it sent out airwaves one after another, and when the airwaves hit the soft body of the huge white worm, they penetrated the soft body. The white flesh splattered all over the surroundings. Inch by inch, the huge white worm's body was reduced to a mangled mass of flesh on the ground. Boom! Lucas's punches didn't stop. The booming sound from his punches broke the air like an automatic rifle. Finally, when his punches broke through the body of the huge white worm, the head of the huge white worm was severed from its body. Its body wriggled and thrashed around for a few moments before it stopped moving. The head of the huge white worm tried to turn and lash out at Lucas with its strands of fine string, but it was unable to do so. The strands of fine string dropped onto the ground and the head of the huge white worm also stopped moving. A familiar sound then erupted in Lucas's mind. Ding! Slaughter points plus 2,000. Current slaughter points 10600/80,000. Host level 8. Current abilities 8. Lucas saw the information panel in his mind, and he thought silently to himself, upgrade Crimson Pact ability. More information about the upgrade appeared. Improvements in expert level of mastery, SSS level Crimson Pact ability. Allows host to have 2 abilities at the same time through the blood of other awakened. The usage of the ability through the Crimson Pact would last for 10 minutes. Upgrade Crimson Pact to expert level of mastery? Y/N. He said yes silently to himself in his mind. Lucas felt a surge of energy coming into his body. Next came the knowledge on how to use the new ability of his Crimson Pact ability. He walked over to the rock platform where Terry and Lynn were lying. Terry, wake up! Lucas shook Terry as he called his name. Luckily, Terry opened his eyes. What? Where am I? He tried to sit up, but he was still too groggy to do so. Lucas tried to help him up, but Terry stopped him. Just give me a moment. Terry had to try very hard not to wipe his body with his handkerchief. Lucas remembered Terry's quirk, and he shrugged his shoulders and said, well, you would have a lot of wiping to do considering where we are. Terry glanced at the surroundings and gave out a sigh. When he saw that only Lynn was beside him, he asked Lucas anxiously, have you seen Damien, Carlo, and Mina? They are still alive, lying unconscious over there. Lucas pointed in the direction where he had placed them. Then we better wake them up and get back to the mission, Terry said. He had recovered from the grogginess and was able to sit up. Terry proceeded to wake up Lynn while Lucas went and checked on Damien, Carlo, and Mina. The 3 of them were also relatively unharmed except for some wounds on their bodies. Terry, Lynn. They were glad when they saw Terry and Lynn still alive and well. Thank you so much for saving our lives. And of course, they were grateful to Lucas for venturing so far and saving them. Lucas shook his head and said, don't get me wrong, but I'm doing it because I think we need as many awakened as we can have to kill the apex demonic beast. And from what I've encountered so far, this apex demonic beast might be a tough one to crack. Terry and his teammates nodded their heads. The demonic beasts they'd encountered were eerie, weird, and cunning. They were lured by the voices of some kids. And when they tried to see who it was, they were ambushed by those stitched-up men and women. And they couldn't recall anything after that. The next thing they knew was Lucas waking them up. Ho ho, I heard you guys got into a horror show, Kevin said when he saw Terry climbing out of the ravine. He stretched his hand out to Terry, wanting to pull him up. But Terry ignored him and got out of the ravine by himself. Don't worry, you will have your fair share of horror soon, Terry replied. Lynn, Damien, Carlo, and Mina followed behind him. Here, I believe it's yours. Harrianto stepped forward and handed Lynn her huge claymore sword. Margaret also got to work checking Terry and his teammates with her healing ability. Finally, Lucas also came out from the ravine. He looked up at the sky and saw that it was getting dark. They were now behind their plan. I think we might have to camp for the night, Lucas said. Riley, Kevin, and Terry frowned. They also looked up at the sky and they knew Lucas was right. After what we've encountered, I think it might be too risky to travel in the dark, Terry said. His encounter with the stitched-up men and women had made him cautious. Kevin shrugged and nodded his head. If Lucas said it was time to camp, then it was time for it. He wouldn't want to risk the lives of his men without Lucas around with them. Riley had always played it safe whenever possible, so it was no surprise when he also agreed. I think we should find a better campsite, Lucas said. God knows what else would come out from the cave and ravine. There might be more unknown demonic beasts inside, and he wasn't going to stick around and find out. The others agreed, and they crossed the ravine to search for a better campsite. Lucas tried to find a place that was relatively easy to spot where the demonic beasts would attack from. He traveled 900 feet away from the ravine before he found such a place. It was a hill with relatively flat ground on the top. They would be able to spot and guard against the demonic beasts coming from the ground much easier than if they stayed on the ground. The demonic beasts would need to climb up the hill to reach them. With that in mind, Lucas went back to where everyone else was. He quickly led them to the hill, and they went up to the top of it. The team settled in and picked a spot on the top of the hill to rest. They spread out and made sure that all the angles of the hill were covered by a team. When they were done setting up, Riley, Terry, and Kevin met with each other at the center to discuss. We will need a team to be on guard while the other two teams rest. I propose we start after midnight, with 3 shifts of 2 hours each, Riley said. Kevin and Terry nodded to his suggestion, and out of fairness, they drew lots to decide which shift each team would take. Riley got the first shift while Kevin got the second. Terry sighed with his luck at getting the third shift. Each of them went back to their team and briefed their team members on their shifts. Lucas and the others nodded. They were glad that they could have a good rest when they finished their shift until the next day. Getting the second shift would be torturous with interrupted rest in between the shifts. Guess we only have energy bars for dinner. Rex grumbled, and he took out his energy bars to munch on. The others shrugged their shoulders, and they took out the same. Crunch. They glanced over at Lucas when they heard the crunching sound of some potato chips. Other than that, Lucas also took out some hot dogs and buns from his dark matter vault armor, much to the envy of his teammates. As it got darker, the air became cold and sounds of the demonic beasts started to echo in the surroundings. Night descended upon the forest. As nightfall arrived, a cool breeze blew across the top of the hill, giving some relief from the heat and humidity of the day. It caused some of Lucas's teammates to rub their hands, trying to get some heat against the cold. Everyone glanced into the distance on alert in case there were demonic beasts advancing towards them. Lucas stood near the edge of the small hill. He had a different focus from the others. Using his Ether Realm ability, he glanced towards the direction of the fog where the apex demonic beast was within his realm. The target marked red was still in the same location where he had seen it earlier on the airplane. Things were still going according to plan. He deactivated his Ether Realm ability next and came out of his realm. Lucas pondered what the ability of the apex demonic beast could be. And whatever it was, he would have to think of a plan to counter it with the other awakened. Time went by, and Lucas was interrupted by a familiar voice. Ho ho! Thanks for the hard work. Time for us to take over now, Kevin said as he approached Lucas. Lucas was surprised that 2 hours had passed so fast. He nodded at Kevin and went to rest with his teammates. It had been a long day for him, and he closed his eyes after a few minutes. Slap. Kevin slapped himself, trying to keep himself awake. His teammates had their own ways to do so. Some stretched themselves and some jogged on the spot. Astrid did something different. She held a mint leaf in her hand, trying to make use of the minty smell to keep herself awake. At 3 in the morning, it was the time that was hardest to stay awake. Whoosh! As the wind blew again, the plants surrounding her rustled and swayed in the wind. Her body tensed up when she saw the rustling didn't stop. It turned direction and headed towards her. Astrid quickly used her ability and tried to make use of the plants to stop whatever was coming. But when she tried to do so, a shimmer of light came at her from within the plants. Astrid tried to turn around to warn the others, but she could see that her movements were slow, as if she were in a slow-motion movie. Her eyes opened wide when she saw something come out of the plants and lunge at her. They were several snake-like demonic beasts. One of these demonic beasts wrapped itself around Astrid's neck, while the other 4 slithered towards her teammates. As the snake-like demonic beast lifted its head back, ready for a strike at her neck with its fangs that were engulfed in a red glow, Astrid tried to use her ability on the mint leaf she had in her hand. The mint leaf grew slowly, extending itself towards the snake-like demonic beast. Astrid could only see the fangs of the snake-like demonic beast moving twice as fast as her. Meanwhile, Cain was jogging on the spot as he glanced at the areas in front of him, trying to see if there were any demonic beasts. Thud. His feet landed one after the other on the ground, making a muted thud in a monotonous rhythm. However, a shimmer of light suddenly came at him from behind, and the rhythm broke. The sound from his next step didn't come at the expected time. Cain realized that he was now moving 2 times slower than normal. He lowered his gaze and turned around. A snake-like demonic beast was coming at him. Cain quickly tried to conjure a boulder, but the boulder formed slowly. It only took a few moments for the snake-like demonic beast to reach him. Cain then opened his mouth and tried to shout. His jaws moved slowly, and his voice came out as a whimper, barely audible to the others. The snake-like demonic beast was now at his feet. It opened its mouth and darted at Cain's feet with its red glowing fangs. Plop! Both the snake-like demonic beasts that were trying to take a bite at Astrid and Cain dropped to the ground. The commotion had woken up Lucas. He observed and saw that the snake-like demonic beasts were able to make Astrid and Cain move slower. "Wake up!" Lucas shouted, and everyone sprang into action. Kevin, Bjorn and Eric activated their rock armor before they were hit by the shimmer of light from the snake-like demonic beasts. The snake-like demonic beasts tried to lunge at them but couldn't. Lucas had used his gravity ability and made the gravity of the surroundings 6 times stronger. The snake-like demonic beasts thrashed around as the gravity pulling them to the ground caused pain to their organs, making them go out of place and squishing them. Boom! Lucas punched at the snake-like demonic beasts, and the airwave emitted by his fist ripped the bodies of the snake-like demonic beasts into pieces. He got the 3 snake-like demonic beasts that were near Kevin, Bjorn, and Eric. When he turned and wanted to deal with the other 2 snake-like demonic beasts left, something came at him from the air. Boom! It was a blast of a sonic wave from a huge bat. The sonic wave hit the ground, causing an explosion. "Lucas!" Haryanto cried out as he shot his plasma cannon at the huge bat flapping its membrane wings. Boom! The huge bat shot out another sonic wave at the plasma shot from Haryanto. They collided, and an explosion ensued in the air. The huge bat then flew higher, and it opened its mouth, blaring out a high-pitched sound. Arg! The high-pitched sound caused sharp pain in everyone's ears, and they covered their ears with their hands. And not only that, everyone also felt their minds disorientated. The ground and the sky were turning non-stop in their vision. It was, however, not over for them. Howls could be heard as demonic wolves leaped up the ridges. Haryanto glanced at where Lucas was, and he felt a sense of relief when he saw Lucas had disappeared. The huge bat flapping its wings opened its mouth, ready for another sonic wave attack. But before it could do so, it felt a gust of wind coming at it from the side. Bladder. Lucas appeared next to it floating in the air and gave it a left hook with his fist. The airwave and power from his fist hit the huge bat's wings, ripped through them, leaving a gaping hole in them and continued to rupture through the bat's body. Plop! The huge bat dropped to the ground immediately. Lucas immediately turned his focus to the other demonic beasts. He saw a dozen demonic wolves that had red fur and came to the top of the hill. One of them was coming up to Astrid, trying to take a bite at her waist. Wham! Riley, who was nearby, unleashed a lightning strike at the demonic wolf. The wolf's fur glowed with a red glow, and the lightning strike reflected back at Riley. Boom! Riley leaped away in the nick of time, and the lightning strike caused the ground to explode. The wolf turned its focus back to Astrid, who was still under the effect of the snake-like demonic beast. This time, before it could snap at her waist, it felt the air freezing. Ice crystals appeared in front of its eyes. The next thing it knew was that Astrid had disappeared. An ice pillar rose from the ground, ripping through its frozen body. When Lucas appeared with Astrid by his side, he stomped on the snake-like creature on the ground before it could unleash its shimmer of light. Lucas then sought out his teammates to see if they needed help. "Emma!" Rex shouted as he ducked to the ground. The demonic wolf lunged at him, missed, and went past him. Emma, who was standing behind, hurled her poison net at it. As her poison net got near, the fur of the demonic wolf glowed with a red glow. But this time, it couldn't deflect her poison net, and it landed on its body. Sizzle. When the poison net came into contact with the demonic wolf, it started to burn and dissolve through the fur and flesh. The demonic wolf thrashed around, trying to get out of the poison net. But it made matters worse as the poison net got more entangled with the demonic wolf instead. Bladder. Rex lashed his spiky rock whip at the demonic wolf, and it ripped the demonic wolf in half. Things weren't as smooth for Riley and Haryanto. Their lightning strike and plasma cannon shots were reflected by the demonic wolves easily. They had to deal with the demonic wolves the old-fashioned way. Riley, with his lightning armor, lunged at one of the demonic wolves. His fist, covered in lightning, went for the demonic wolf's head. The demonic wolf tried to dodge his fist by leaping to the side. Riley then raised his leg and gave a side kick to the demonic wolf. Sizzle. His shin, covered in lightning, hit, and the lightning burned through some of the fur and flesh of the demonic wolf. The demonic wolf was hurled into the air, and Haryanto saw his chance. Mechanical snakes shot out from his armor at the demonic wolf. The snakes got onto the neck of the demonic wolf, and they started to cut at the neck with their dissecting tools. Blood splattered and left a trail on the ground as the demonic wolf tumbled across the ground. When it stopped, its head had been dislodged from its body by the mechanical snakes. Help! A scream for help came from Kevin. Kane was now struggling with the demonic wolves as he was still under the effect of the snake-like demonic beasts. 2 demonic wolves were biting onto both his arms, and another demonic wolf was sinking its fangs into his abdomen. Kevin had tried to rid the demonic wolves off Kane's body, but he got hit by a shimmer of light. Fortunately, he was able to shout for help before his actions became slow. Terry and Lynn, who were nearby, tried to help them, but they had to get rid of the demonic wolf that was attacking them. Lynn slashed her sword at the demonic wolf coming at her. Bladder. A slicing blade shot at the demonic wolf, but it got reflected at her instead. It sliced her shoulder, and she was lucky that she dodged it in the nick of time. Terry unleashed his blue glow at the demonic wolf next. But it was also reflected and missed Terry by an inch. Terry wanted to shout for Damien. He figured that Damien, with his explosive ability, should be able to take care of the demonic wolf. But before he could do so, Lucas appeared by the side of the demonic wolf. He pulled back his arm and punched at the body of the demonic wolf. The demonic wolf's fur glowed with its red glow, but it was useless against Lucas's punch. Bladder. Lucas's fist plunged into the body of the demonic beast, and it was ripped apart by the impact. The demonic wolf's flesh and innards splattered onto the ground. Lucas turned his focus to Kevin and Kane. He activated his Ether Realm ability and disappeared. The next time he appeared again, he was right in front of Kane. Boom! He unleashed 3 punches at the demonic wolves that were biting onto Kane, giving out loud booming sounds when his fist broke through the air. The airwaves shot at the demonic wolves, ripping them into pulps of fur, flesh, and blood. Lucas, watch out! Terry shouted when he saw the snake-like demonic beast make a move. A shimmer of light hit Lucas. Lucas's actions slowed down. He tried to turn and face the snake-like demonic beast, but he was halfway done when the snake-like demonic beast lunged at him. The snake-like demonic beast coiled itself around Lucas's neck, and it lifted its head backwards. It opened its mouth, and its fangs gave out a red glow. Snap! The snake-like demonic beast snapped at Lucas's neck. An amber glow appeared behind the snake-like demonic beast. And before it could latch its red glowing fangs into Lucas's neck, Sheba bit its head off. Everyone gave out a sigh of relief when they saw that Lucas was safe. Sheba then turned its attention to the demonic wolves that were remaining. It lunged at one of the demonic wolves not far away. The demonic wolf quickly engulfed its body in a red glow, trying to reflect attacks that would come from Sheba. However, Sheba's attack was crude and primal. Snap! Sheba opened its huge mouth and snapped the head off the demonic wolf's body with one clean bite. Blood oozed out from the headless body of the demonic wolf. And a moment later, the headless body dropped to the ground. The remaining 3 demonic wolves saw what had happened, and they began to lower their bodies and gave out a whimper at Sheba. Sheba wasn't going to let them off, as it saw these demonic wolves as food. It bent its knees ready to lunge at the next demonic wolf. Seeing that their gesture of submission didn't work, these demonic wolves began to try and encircle Sheba. Whoosh! Sheba leaped and got in front of a demonic wolf in a split second. It opened its huge mouth, ready to pounce onto the head of the demonic wolf. Thud! 2 other demonic wolves came at Sheba from the side with their sharp fangs. However, their fangs didn't do much to Sheba. The scaly skin of Sheba was impenetrable to the sharp fangs. Sheba wasted no time to bite off the head of the demonic wolf in front of it and turned its body to shrug off the other 2 that were on its sides. The demonic wolves were flung onto the ground from the forceful jerk by Sheba. Sheba went for the demonic wolf to its right next, ripping through the demonic wolf's body with its huge mouth in a bite. Bladder. The demonic wolf's body was split into halves in an instant. It was not over yet. After Sheba was done with the demonic wolf on its right, it turned around and went for the last remaining demonic wolf. The demonic wolf had turned around and tried to escape. Sheba bent its knees and pounced onto the demonic wolf from behind. Snap! Its huge mouth and sharp fangs sunk into the back of the demonic wolf's neck. Sheba tightened its jaws and ripped out a huge chunk of meat from the demonic wolf's neck. Plop! The head of the demonic wolf drooped to the ground as it was hanging from its body by a thin thread of skin and flesh left. Blood squirted out from the wounds and the demonic wolf dropped to the ground in the next few moments. After it was done, Sheba jumped excitedly towards Lucas. Lucas was moving slowly as he was still under the effect of the snake-like demonic beast. He tried to stop Sheba with his hands but was too late. Sheba knocked him over and he sat on the ground. Lucas frowned when he saw Sheba with its bloodied body trying to snuggle up to him. Terry cringed uncontrollably at the scene. The other awakened were thankful that it was all over. All around them were dead bodies of demonic beasts. Margaret got to work healing those who were heavily wounded. She came up to Cain and used her healing ability to try and heal his wounds. A white glow engulfed her hands, and it darted out from her hands to the wounds on Cain's neck and 2 arms. The flesh and muscles on Cain's neck and arms twitched and grew after the white glow came into contact with them. It took a few minutes for the wounds to finally be fully healed. Thanks. Cain showed his appreciation for Margaret's help. Margaret nodded, wiped the sweat off her forehead, and went on to heal the other awakened. While she was doing so, Lucas finally got back to normal. Thanks, buddy, he said and patted Sheba on its head. Sheba was just as reliable as usual. He glanced at the surroundings and thought that it was a pity he didn't have a summon pact with one of the snake-like demonic beasts. After he upgraded his summoner ability to adept level of mastery, he had an additional slot for a demonic beast. The ability of the snake-like demonic beast to slow down enemies was useful, and Lucas would definitely try and make it his second summon beast if he had another chance to do so. Just as he was in his thoughts, a familiar sound erupted in his mind. Ding! Slaughter points plus 7,000. Current slaughter points 17600/80,000. Host level 8. Current abilities 8. Lucas was glad when he saw that he was close to being able to upgrade one of his abilities to master level of mastery. And at master level of mastery, he would be able to bend the essence of the ability to his liking, like how Leroy was able to turn his body into a puddle of flesh, or like General Zephyr's cold flame. He was eager now to upgrade his lightning ability so that he could turn the lightning attacks into different forms. That was close. Terry came up to him and said while wiping his white armor off any blood, flesh and dirt with his handkerchief, "We might have all perished if we weren't at this advantageous location." Kevin added and said. Terry for once agreed with Kevin and he nodded his head. "I guess there goes our sleep, huh?" Riley came over and gave out a huge sigh. The night had turned silent again after all the commotion. Cold wind blew, bringing with it chills and the smell of blood and flesh from the demonic beasts. They decided to clear up some of the mess first and stay close together, taking turns to rest before the day breaks. Only a few were able to doze off, and most of them stayed on alert, opening their eyes at the slightest noise they heard. The tension and stress of the mission was slowly getting to the awakened. Next day, when it was morning, everyone was glad to leave the place. They wasted no time to get down from the top of the hill. It was starting to stink with all the bodies that were strewn around. Flies were already buzzing around the bodies. Once the awakened teams got onto the forest ground, they moved into position. They had decided that Riley and his teammates would lead, while Terry and Kevin's team would follow closely behind. And within Riley's team, Lucas and Haryanto would be moving ahead of the others. Lucas and Haryanto trekked ahead, clearing the thick foliage with their abilities when required. Some of the foliage got so thick that it blocked out most of the sun, making the area cold and wet, a place that seemed fertile for poisonous beings. Lucas hoped to encounter some of the snake-like demonic beasts again, but he didn't have any luck. Their movement along the way was relatively uneventful. There weren't any encounters with any demonic beasts except for a seemingly endless stretch of foliage. Finally, the foliage slowly cleared, and their journey got smoother. "We are near," Lucas said when he started seeing a thin fog among the tree trunks in front of him. Haryanto nodded and stood on alert. They waited for the others to catch up, and when the other awakened did so, they gathered around to decide on their next plan of action. "Where is the apex demonic beast now?" Riley asked. Lucas activated his Ether Realm ability, and within his realm, he saw the area in front of him being marked red at around 900 yards away. He appeared in everyone's vision again when he deactivated his Ether Realm ability. "It's right ahead, 900 yards away," Lucas replied. Riley glanced in the direction where Lucas pointed, but he couldn't see far. The fog had gotten much thicker in the distance further away from them. Terry and Kevin also realized the low visibility. They had thermal sight devices with them, but they figured it could only help a little as the fog was too dense. "Let me test it out." Kevin took out his thermal sight, mounted it onto his head, and glanced into the distance. He could see through the thin fog, but everything became a white wall when it got thicker. "No go. Everything is a white wall when the fog gets thicker." Kevin removed his thermal sight and shook his head. Riley, Terry, and Kevin frowned as they tried to figure out something. Lucas raised his hand and said, "Maybe Sheba could help." "Sheba?" Riley, Terry, and Kevin tilted their heads and asked. "Yes, I can try and get Sheba to agitate the apex demonic beast. Make it chase after Sheba to where we are now. And if Terry's information is accurate, it should be in its lizard form." Riley, Terry, and Kevin nodded to his suggestion since Lucas was confident with it. They had also witnessed Sheba's power to know that it was a sound suggestion. But before that, they would need to make some preparation. Lucas and his teammates would face the apex demonic beast head-on. Kevin's team would ambush on the right while Terry's team would attack from the left. After they got into position and everyone replenished their energy, it was time to put everything into action. Lucas began to summon Sheba out from his summon space. An amber glow appeared in front of him. Sheba came out from the glow, and it leaped excitedly at Lucas. "Not now, buddy. I need your help first." Lucas patted its head and communicated with it through his mind using his summoner ability. Sheba nodded its head and turned around. It trotted towards the fog and disappeared into it. Lucas and the others then waited where they were for Sheba's return. Snap! Sheba snapped at a raccoon-looking demonic beast and swallowed it. Even though it couldn't see far into the distance in the fog, Sheba made good use of its scaly skin, which was able to withstand attacks from the demonic beasts. And after the demonic beasts' attacks hit, but didn't cause any damage, Sheba would finish them off with a bite. It was munching on the raccoon demonic beast when Sheba came into an open area. The fog was swirling around in the area as if it was alive. Sheba's senses told it that there was a powerful being in the vicinity. It growled and lunged itself into the swirling fog. Strangely, the swirling fog moved and got out of Sheba's way. Sheba didn't stop and it chased after the swirling fog. This time it was just inches close to getting to the swirling fog. Sheba tried again with a stronger leap, but the swirling fog dodged successfully again. Finally, Sheba got agitated and gave out a roar. The swirling fog then tried to move away from Sheba. It was a little too late. Sheba opened its huge mouth, and it began to suck in the air. The suction started to pull in the swirling fog towards its huge mouth. Trying its best, the swirling fog struggled, but it couldn't get away from Sheba. As the swirling fog got pulled closer, it had no choice but to reveal itself. The swirling fog condensed itself into a small volume, and a huge lizard-looking demonic beast appeared in front of Sheba. The apex demonic beast stood tall at 10 feet and was around 30 feet long. It had red scales covering its body, and on its head were 2 sharp horns that looked like they were from an ox. The tail was filled with spikes and made it look menacing. The apex demonic beast opened its mouth and its tongue lashed out at Sheba. Boom! The tongue hit onto the ground where Sheba was standing and caused an explosion. Soil and rocks from the ground flew out into the surroundings. The apex demonic beast missed. It glanced around and saw that Sheba had leaped to the back. The apex demonic beast rolled back its tongue and tried to lunge at Sheba. Tremble. The size of the apex demonic beast caused the ground to tremble when it landed. Trees fell and a crater was created by the apex demonic beast. However, it missed as Sheba had gotten away before it landed. Sheba had leaped backwards, getting closer to where Lucas and the others were. The apex demonic beast opened its mouth and shot out its tongue at Sheba. Boom! A few trees stood in the way, and the tongue penetrated through the thick tree trunks. Wood splintered out from the tree trunks and shot towards Sheba. Sheba turned around and faced it head-on. Thud! The wood splinters shot onto Sheba's body, giving out a thud. They couldn't cause any damage to Sheba with its scaly skin. And in the next moment, the tongue of the apex demonic beast came at Sheba. Sheba dodged to the side. Splash! A huge volume of sticky liquid squirted out from the tongue of the apex demonic beast. Some of it stuck onto Sheba's body. The sticky liquid immediately reacted with Sheba's scaly skin. Smoke came out from the areas that were struck by the sticky liquid. Sheba gave out a low growl, pretending to be in pain. Boom! The apex demonic beast saw its reaction, and it was emboldened to charge at Sheba again. As it got near, Sheba leaped away from it once more. This angered the apex demonic beast. Lucas watched intensely as the trees fell in the distance. The occurrence of the trees falling got nearer as time went by. He knew that it would be time soon. Get ready? Lucas spoke into the earbuds when he saw the trees in front of him slowly falling. Sheba leaped out from the fog, and it ran past Lucas without stopping. A huge pink projectile came at him next. He quickly activated his Ether Realm ability and disappeared. Boom! The tongue of the apex demonic beast hit the ground, causing a huge crater to be created. Lucas appeared and he activated his gravity ability on the apex demonic beast. The tongue of the apex demonic beast drooped to the ground from the 6 times increase in gravity. He raised his hands and was ready to unleash his lightning prison. Splash! A huge volume of sticky liquid squirted out into the surroundings from the apex demonic beast's tongue. Lucas went into his ether realm at the last minute. The sticky liquid stuck onto the ground, plants, and trees in the surroundings. The horns of the apex demonic beast started to give out a white glow. White flames shot out from the horns towards the patch where Lucas was. The area which was now covered in the sticky liquid got into contact with the white flames, and the white flames burnt wherever the sticky liquid was. Smoke that was in a tint of yellow emitted from the white flames. Cough. Riley and the others who were nearby started coughing furiously. Blood started to seep out from their skin like sweat. Take out your gas masks and get away from the smoke, Riley shouted. They quickly took out their gas masks to cover their noses and mouths, after which they tried to leap away but couldn't. Riley and the others felt weak in their knees. Margaret tried to use her healing ability on the others. She was, however, also significantly under the effect of the yellow smoke and could only muster a slim thread of white glow from her hands. Lucas saw this, and he appeared outside the areas that were burning in the white flames. He raised his hands and conjured up flashes of lightning for his lightning prison. The apex demonic beast saw this and tried to charge forward at Lucas. Could only move slowly, due to Lucas's gravity ability. The apex demonic beast then shot out white flames from its horns at Lucas instead. Kevin, who was on the right side of the apex demonic beast, saw this and stomped his leg onto the ground. The ground rippled towards the apex demonic beast, lifting it up slightly and causing the white flames from it to miss. Cain also hurled huge boulders at the apex demonic beast from the air. Crack. When the huge boulders hit the body of the apex demonic beast, they cracked into smaller pieces. They couldn't do much damage to the apex demonic beast other than causing some distractions to the apex demonic beast. But it was enough of a distraction for Lucas to unleash his lightning prison onto the apex demonic beast's tongue and the white flames, which were burning and giving out the yellow smoke. Boom! The pillars of lightning descended onto the tongue of the apex demonic beast and the white flames, causing a huge explosion. It wasn't over as the pillars of lightning formed a cage and slowly closed in. Lucas's plan worked, as the sticky liquid fueling the white flames was burnt and vaporized by the pillars of lightning. The huge patch of white flames went out as the pillars of lightning went past the sticky liquid when the cage of the lightning prison shrank its radius. The tongue of the apex demonic beast was ruptured into pieces by the pillars of lightning. The pain from it caused the apex demonic beast to thrash around. The struggle made the apex demonic beast rip out its tongue from the apex demonic beast's mouth. Growl. The apex demonic beast gave out a growl in pain. And to everyone's surprise, they saw the tongue of the apex demonic beast regenerate in its mouth. What the hell? Kevin exclaimed in horror. Whip. The apex demonic beast swung its head to its right and whipped out its tongue at Kevin and his teammates. Meanwhile, Lucas checked on Riley and the others. They were now sitting on the ground. Margaret was trying her best to heal herself. Things were looking better. Their blood had stopped seeping out from their skin, and Margaret could now wield most of the power from her healing ability. Go help the others. We are feeling better now, Riley said. Lucas glanced at the battle between the apex demonic beast and Kevin's team, and it wasn't looking to be going too well. He nodded at Riley and leaped away towards the apex demonic beast. Sheba, come with me. Kevin tried to pull the ground towards him like a rug. He had to buy some time for his teammates. Bjorn and Eric were lying on the ground, injured by the apex demonic beast's tongue, and the apex demonic beast was ready to have another go at them. The ground moved and it made the apex demonic beast tilt to its side for a very brief moment. After that, the apex demonic beast shot out its tongue again at Bjorn and Eric. Bjorn and Eric activated their ability, covering their bodies in spiky rock armor. They raised their hands, covering their heads with their arms, and braced for impact. Vines grew out from the ground, and they tried to stop the apex demonic beast's tongue by wrapping themselves around it. It was, however, not enough to stop the tongue of the apex demonic beast. The tongue ripped through the vines and shot at Bjorn and Eric. Boom! The tongue hit and both Bjorn and Eric were hurled into the air. Damn you! Kevin and Cain shouted in anger. They started to hurl huge boulders at the apex demonic beast. Thud! One after another, the huge boulders hit and cracked into pieces. The apex demonic beast wasn't hurt by any of the huge boulders, but it turned its focus on Kevin and Cain. They were a nuisance, and it wanted to finish them off as soon as possible. Splash! Sticky liquid squirted out from the apex demonic beast's tongue, and it splattered onto Kevin and Cain. Arg! Both of them cried out in pain when the sticky liquid came into contact with their skin. The sticky liquid started to eat into their skin and at the same time restricted their movements with its stickiness. White glow appeared on the apex demonic beast's horns next. Terry and his teammates who were on the other side of the apex demonic beast knew that they had to do something. Lynn, no time to waste, Terry shouted and stretched out his arm to Lynn. Lynn drew out her claymore sword and slit an opening on his arm. Her claymore sword glowed with a blue glow after she used her ability. Terry raised his hands and a blue glow darted out at the apex demonic beast's body, which was exposed to him. The blue glow hit onto the body and a huge patch of it became blue-colored. Whoosh! Lynn then slashed her claymore sword at the body of the apex demonic beast, giving out a slicing wave that had a blue glow. Bladder. The apex demonic beast's body was sliced open after it had turned soft under the effect of Terry's ability. Blood and flesh splattered out from the wound. Damien followed up by hurling balls of amber glow at the wound of the apex demonic beast. Boom! They hit and the apex demonic beast thrashed around violently from the pain as its wound got deeper, and more damage was inflicted onto it. The spiky tail of the apex demonic beast then came at Terry and his teammates. The spikes shot out from the tail of the apex demonic beast when it swept close to Terry and his teammates. Carlo and Mina got hit by the spikes and they were nailed to the ground. Small black pellet-like objects then shot out from the holes of the tail where the spikes were. These black pellets latched onto the skin of Carlo and Mina. Arg! Carlo and Mina gave out a cry in pain when they felt the black pellets start to draw out blood from their body. These black pellets got larger in an instant after they drew out a significant amount of blood from Carlo and Mina. Carlo and Mina seemed to have gotten thinner in an instant and they were now unconscious. Damien tried to help them, and he hurled out smaller amber balls at the black pellets, which by now he recognized to be a form of demonic beast. Bladder. When the amber balls hit onto the black pellets, they splattered into a mist made of blood due to the explosion. Lynn held her sword with both her hands, and she tried to chop the tail of the apex demonic beast into halves. Slice. Her sword went in halfway, but the apex demonic beast reacted in pain, and it swung its tail around. Lynn was hurled into the air due to the force. The apex demonic beast shot out its white flames at Lynn instead. Lynn! Terry could only cry out in vain, unable to do much. Thoughts went through his mind. Scenes of how they were laughed at in the academy and how they turned their abilities from seemingly useless to one of the deadliest when they worked together flashed by. Lynn had always supported his ambition and yet, in times of danger, he was not able to do anything for her. He could feel his heart thumping fast as he tried to leap up into the air. He felt only despair when he saw the white flames come close to Lynn. Thud! Something came from the side and hit onto Lynn, hurling her away from the white flames. It was Sheba and the white flames came onto Sheba instead. Sheba turned its head and opened its huge mouth, sucking in all the white flames the apex demonic beast shot at it. Lucas had used his gravity ability on Sheba, making it fly in the air. It worked and Sheba was more than excited for this new experience. The apex demonic beast stopped its white flames, and it turned its head and lashed its tongue at Sheba. Whoosh! The tongue went by in an instant, sending a gust of wind at Sheba. Sheba had flown away from the tongue just in time. Lucas appeared on the ground, and he conjured his lightning into a spear. He hurled the lightning spear at the wound on the apex demonic beast's body. The lightning spear plunged into the body of the apex demonic beast, burning and searing the flesh within. Soon, when the lightning spear dissipated, the flesh surrounding the wound twitched. Lucas frowned when he saw the wound of the apex demonic beast close and heal quickly. This might be a long and hard battle. The apex demonic beast turned its body and tried to face Lucas. But Sheba kept coming at it, biting off chunks of its flesh, and when the apex demonic beast shot its tongue at Sheba, Sheba flew away from it. That frustrated the apex demonic beast. It gave out a loud growl and sticky liquid began secreting from its body, covering it quickly. Everyone, get away! Lucas knew what it was up to, and he shouted at the others. Terry carried Lynn in his arms and leaped away. The other awakened also helped each other to get away as far as possible. White flames shot out from the apex demonic beast's horns, and the flames erupted onto the sticky liquid that was covering its body. The yellow smoke began to fill the air. Some of the raccoon-like demonic beasts in the vicinity caught in the smoke dropped out from the canopy and onto the ground. Their bodies were covered in blood, with the blood seeping non-stop from their skin. They twitched and struggled, but it didn't take long for them to lie on the ground motionlessly. Lucas covered his nose and mouth with his gas mask and activated his ether realm ability. Getting into his ether realm was the best way to avoid the poisonous yellow smoke. Soon, there was only Sheba in the air fighting with the apex demonic beast. The other awakened had gotten out of the way from the yellow smoke. The apex demonic beast turned its focus fully onto Sheba. Whoosh! White flames roared and shot at Sheba from the apex demonic beast's body. Sheba didn't dodge but opened its huge mouth and took in all the white flames it could. Burp. When Sheba swallowed most of the white flames, it gave out a loud burp, much to the anger of the apex demonic beast. It swiped its tail at Sheba next, and Sheba flew to the side as its tail went by. The tail of the apex demonic beast went on and shot out those parasitic black pellets like a demonic beast at Sheba. Those black pellets latched onto the body of Sheba. Sheba! Everyone gasped, fearing that Sheba would be harmed by these parasites. Carlo and Mina were still unconscious due to them. The black pellets started to swell in size, and they got bigger and bigger. However, they didn't stop. Even when their skin was as thin as paper due to their increase in size, stretching it to the limit, their gain in size didn't stop. Finally, it was the end for them. Pop! One by one, these parasitic demonic beasts popped into a mist of blood, like a show of fireworks. When the apex demonic beast saw this, it gave out a low growl. Whoosh! It shot out white flames at Sheba from its horns. Sheba opened its mouth to swallow the white flames. As it was doing so, the tongue of the apex demonic beast came out of nowhere and wrapped itself around the body of Sheba. The apex demonic beast swung its head, trying to slam Sheba onto the ground. Boom! Its tongue hit the ground, creating a huge crater with debris flying in all directions. As the dust and soil settled, there was no Sheba inside the crater. The apex demonic beast glanced around trying to see where Sheba was. Lucas had used his ether realm ability and brought Sheba into it. He and Sheba appeared a distance away from the apex demonic beast with his hands raised. The apex demonic beast sensed danger, and the white flames on its body burned more vigorously, giving off more of the yellow smoke. In the next moment, the apex demonic beast saw flashes of light above it and it looked up. Pillars of lightning had gathered in the air and descended onto it. Sizzle. The pillars of lightning struck the apex demonic beast's body, ripping through its flesh and burning the body. The apex demonic beast tried to get away but couldn't. Ice crystals appeared in the surroundings and the temperature dropped to sub-zero. Ice pillars rose from the ground, freezing the apex demonic beast when they came into contact with the apex demonic beast's legs and body. Crack! The pillars of lightning cracked the frozen parts of the apex demonic beast into pieces as they swept inward. Trapped within the lightning prison ice palace, the apex demonic beast couldn't do much but endure the pain as its flesh was decimated by the pillars of lightning. Soon, as the cage made of the lightning pillars dissipated, the apex demonic beast was now left with a small part of its body, charred flesh strewn all over the surroundings. Lucas did it again. Kevin cried out in victory. Terry and Lynn, who were now nursing their wounds, nodded and gave out a smile. Lying on the ground, Carlo and Mina were being healed by Margaret. Riley, Emma, Rex and Harrianto were also glad that it was over. It took them much effort to be healed by Margaret from the effects of the yellow smoke. They shuddered to think what would have happened if Lucas wasn't around. Sheba leaped excitedly toward the apex demonic beast. Sheba! Lucas knew it was not over yet, and he gave chase after Sheba. When he got to where Sheba was, it was having a feast on the meat of the apex demonic beast. Lucas stood and watched the surroundings on high alert. There was no notification from the system yet. Everything was quiet. The charred flesh lay motionlessly. Lucas then glanced at the largest pile of flesh that was left. Most likely it was enveloping the core of the apex demonic beast. Twitch. He got ready when he saw the pile of flesh started twitching. Lucas raised his hands again and unleashed another lightning prison onto the pile of twitching flesh. Pillars of lightning gathered above the pile of twitching flesh, giving out flashes of bright light as the pillars of lightning accumulated with his energy. Sheba saw what Lucas was doing, and it stopped its feast. The pillars of lightning descended onto the pile of twitching flesh when Lucas waved his hands down. And to his surprise, a few slits appeared above the pile of twitching flesh. The slits opened and the pillars of lightning went into the void when they struck the dark openings created by the slits. Ashen. Lucas thought and activated his Ether Realm ability. Once inside the Ether Realm ability, he saw a smudge of darkness not far away in front of him. He lunged at the smudge of darkness and followed it. The smudge of darkness got close to the pile of twitching flesh. A slit appeared and opened. Ashen stepped out from the dark opening with Risa. Thud. Before Ashen and Risa could do anything, Lucas appeared beside them suddenly, and he punched Ashen with his fist. The impact hurled Ashen into the air and made him tumble through the ground. Plop. Ashen felt his innards sticking to the ground when he stopped. 6 times gravity was doing this to him as Lucas had activated his gravity ability on him. Lucas then conjured 2 spears made of lightning and he hurled them at Ashen. A dark glow engulfed Ashen's body immediately. The 2 spears made of lightning hit the dark glow, and they dissipated into the ether. That was, however, just a distraction by Lucas. Sheba lunged at Ashen from the side. Bladder. Its fangs sank into Ashen's body, and Sheba flung its head from side to side, trying to rip out the chunk of flesh from his body. Blood from Ashen splattered into the surroundings. Arg! Ashen gave out a muffled cry in pain, and he raised his hand at Sheba. White glow engulfed his hand, and a torrent of lightning shot out at Sheba. Wham! The torrent of lightning came onto Sheba's body, causing a sequence of explosions. This frustrated Sheba, and it gave out an angry growl. White flames like the ones emitted from the apex demonic beast engulfed its body. Meanwhile, when Lucas and Sheba were dealing with Ashen, Risa got close to the pile of twitching flesh. The pillars of lightning were still trying to get at the pile of twitching flesh. But they were gone into the ether when they hit the dark openings that were covering the pile of twitching flesh. Risa stretched out his hands and the armor on his arms transformed. Tentacles made of mechanical parts appeared and they extended out toward the pile of twitching flesh. Kink. The mechanical pincers gave out a sound when they grabbed onto some portion of the twitching flesh. Risa tried to reel the pile of twitching flesh toward him with his mechanical tentacles. Wobble. The ground that Risa was standing on wobbled like a wave and it caused him to lose his footing. A huge boulder then came at Risa. Risa's shoulder had a compartment rise from his shoulder and a plasma cannon gave out a plasma shot at the huge boulder. Crack. The huge boulder exploded into pieces when it got hit by the plasma shot. Kevin appeared from behind the pieces of rocks and lunged at Risa. Mechanical snakes then shot out from Risa's body at Kevin's face. Damn it! Fight like a man! Kevin shouted as he tried to get the mechanical snakes off his face. With the distraction dealt with, Risa tried to get back to what he was doing. Veins grew from the ground and wrapped themselves around the mechanical tentacles. They tightened, trying to break the mechanical tentacles into pieces. Sweat flowed down from Astrid's forehead as she gave all the energy she had left to the veins. It was not enough as Risa used the plasma cannon and ruptured the veins with the plasma shot. The pile of twitching flesh started to move closer to Risa, out of the attack boundary of the lightning prison. Suddenly, a blue glow darted at the mechanical tentacles of Risa, and before Risa could react, a slicing wave sliced through the mechanical tentacle, cutting it in half. This angered Risa and he shot out 2 plasma cannons at Terry and Lynn, who had come close to Risa to try and stop him. Terry pulled Lynn to his back, and the plasma cannons came at his body. No! Lynn shouted and tried to get Terry out of the way. Walls of rocks rose from the ground and blocked the way of the plasma cannons. Crack. The walls of rocks cracked into pieces as the plasma shots advanced closer to where Terry and Lynn were. Luckily for Terry, the plasma shots dissipated when they reached the last standing rock wall. You owe me one, Kevin said. The walls of rock were conjured by Kevin just as he was done dealing with the mechanical snakes. Risa had to walk over to the twitching pile of flesh now that his mechanical tentacles were destroyed. This gave time for Riley and the others to join in the battle. Wham! Riley unleashed his lightning strike at Risa's body. An energy shield appeared, blocking the lightning strike. Thud! Riley then came lunging at the energy shield with his body engulfed in his lightning armor. The lightning armor started to react with the energy shield. Boom! An explosion ensued when the energy shield was finally destroyed by Riley's lightning armor. Rex and Emma, who were waiting for this moment, made their moves. Whip! A spiky rock whip came at Risa's head, and he leaped away from it. Emma then hurled her poison net at where Risa landed. Arg! The poison net caught Risa within it, and it started to burn and dissolve through Risa's armor. Risa dislodged his head from his body and flew out from the poison net. Bam! Haryanto, who was waiting for it, shot his plasma cannons at Risa's head. His plasma shots hit, and it made Risa's head fly toward the pile of twitching flesh. Whip! To everyone's horror, they saw the pile of twitching flesh extended out a strand of flesh and caught Risa's head with it. Risa was also shocked by what had happened. The body of Risa disintegrated into smaller pieces, escaping from Emma's poison net, and they tried to merge back together with Risa's head. Whip! More strands of flesh whipped out from the pile of twitching flesh. The head and body of Risa, being held by the tendrils from the pile of twitching flesh, were pulled into it. Arg! Risa shouted as he struggled to merge his body back into a hole. The flesh from the pile of twitching was pulling him in, making him drown in the flesh grabbing onto his head. The flesh encroached onto bits of his head and body, and soon, Risa was gone from sight. "We have got to kill it quick," Riley shouted. He didn't know what was about to happen, but he knew that it wasn't going to be something good for them. His shout knocked everyone out of their shock at what happened. They started to unleash whatever they got at the pile of twitching flesh. Huge boulders came down at it from above as Kane unleashed their abilities. Terry helped with his ability and marked most of the pile of twitching flesh blue. Lynn followed up quickly with her claymore sword, slicing the softened flesh away from the pile of twitching flesh. Suffering from these attacks, the pile of twitching flesh twitched more vigorously. Riley was ready for his lightning strike when he saw something strange happen. Risa's face appeared out from the pile of twitching flesh and glanced at everyone with a ghastly look. His face was now pale white, and his expression conveyed no emotions. Wham! Without any hesitation, Riley raised his hand and unleashed his lightning strike at Risa's face. However, when the lightning strike got near, the flesh from the pile of twitching flesh covered Risa's face. Bladder! The lightning strike landed upon the flesh and huge chunks of the flesh were blown off from the pile of twitching flesh. However, it didn't stop. More and more of the flesh dropped off from the pile of twitching flesh. And soon, a figure stood where the pile of twitching flesh was. "Risa!" Riley muttered when he saw the face on the figure. The figure, with its body like a smaller form of the apex demonic beast, which was as tall as an adult, turned towards Riley and lunged at him in the next moment. Whoosh! Riley could only see a shimmer coming at him, and he could only cross his arms in front of his body to protect himself. The apex demonic beast slammed into Riley's arms. A loud crack could be heard, and Riley's arms were fractured in an instant. His lightning armor could only shred off some of the flesh off the apex demonic beast. Whip! Rex, who was beside Riley, tried to distract the apex demonic beast with his spiky rock whip. The apex demonic beast grabbed onto the spiky rock whip with its claw-like hands. It turned towards Rex and holes opened up all over its body. Rex wanted to duck but was too late. Plasma cannons shot out from these holes. Bladder! Although his body was covered in his rock armor, the rock armor wasn't enough to hold off such an attack from the apex demonic beast. The plasma cannons ruptured through his body and limbs, leaving bloodied, gaping holes on his body. "No!" Emma cried out in anger, and she hurled her poison net at the apex demonic beast, and at the same time she blew out all the poison smoke she could muster. The apex demonic beast shot out white flames at her net and poison smoke. The white flames started reacting with her poison net and cloud of poison smoke, burning it all into smoke. While this was going on, Haryanto grabbed onto Rex and pulled him away. Margaret tried desperately to stop the bleeding of Rex's wounds. Her heart sank when she saw that there were so many gaping wounds. White glow darted onto the wounds and did its work. Terry unleashed his ability at the apex demonic beast from behind when it was dealing with Emma. The blue glow coming out from his hands nearly reached the back of the apex demonic beast before holes opened up on its back. Terry knew what it meant after witnessing the apex demonic beast's attack on Rex. He stopped in his tracks and tried to dodge to the side. Pop! Black pellets shot out from these holes on the apex demonic beast's back. They brushed past Terry's body and shot towards his teammates who were standing behind him. The first person that got hit was Lynn. These black pellets latched onto her body and started to suck the blood out of it. Damien quickly hurled his amber balls at the black pellets that were swelling up on Lynn's body. However, he himself was latched on by some of the black pellets. Carlo and Mina were quick enough this time to activate their metallic ability and covered their bodies in steel. Bladder. Carlo and Mina smashed the black pellets that dropped off from their bodies, squishing them into a splatter of putrid flesh. They proceeded to try and help Damien and Lynn. Damien and Lynn were kneeling on the ground as they had become weak from the loss of blood. The black pellets on them had expanded to 5 times their original size. Bladder. Carlo and Mina, using their metallic fists, plunged through the skin of these parasitic demonic beasts, splattering them into a red mist. They then helped Damien and Lynn away from the apex demonic beast. Whoosh! White flames came at Terry next, and he leaped away. Terry decided to get back to his teammates first as there wasn't much he could do without Lynn. Roar! The apex demonic beast gave out a roar through Reese's mouth. It had cleared Emma's poison net and her cloud of poison smoke. Bladder. The apex demonic beast lunged at her and its claw-like hand plunged through her waist. Emma gritted her teeth, held onto the arm of the apex demonic beast and took in a deep breath. She blew out a cloud of poison smoke at Reese's face. Sizzle. The skin on Reese's face started to be burnt and dissolved by her poison. However, the apex demonic beast didn't even flinch from the poison smoke. Holes opened on its body again. Emma! Riley shouted and he lunged at the apex demonic beast with all his might. Thud! Riley hit the apex demonic beast with his body. Every movement made him feel the pain from his fractured arm, but he knew he had to do it. Emma would not survive the plasma cannons within such a short range. His lightning armor shredded the flesh off the apex demonic beast's body. This got the attention of the apex demonic beast. It pulled out its claw-like hand from Emma's body and turned towards Riley. But before the apex demonic beast could deal out its blow, the ground that it was standing on wobbled. Kevin had stomped his feet onto the ground with his ability. This caught the apex demonic beast off guard, and it nearly fell onto the ground. Harrianto took the opportunity to grab onto Emma and Riley, getting them away from the apex demonic beast. Huge boulders smashed down from above at the apex demonic beast and vines that grew from the ground wrapped around the feet of the apex demonic beast. Crack! The apex demonic beast swung its arms at the huge boulders, making them crack into pieces the moment its arms hit. And when the vines started to encroach upwards onto its body, the apex demonic beast engulfed itself in the white flames. The vines from Astid were burned into ashes in an instant. The apex demonic beast then turned its attention to Kevin. Whoosh! Kevin saw a shimmer of white flames coming at him, and he covered himself in his rock armor. The apex demonic beast with its claw-like hand plunged through his rock armor as if it were nothing. Arg! Kevin felt his energy going away immediately. The yellow smoke that was coming out from the white flame was affecting him. Bjorn and Eric saw what happened and they came charging at the apex demonic beast with their spiky rock armor. Thud! Their impact only caused the apex demonic beast to take a step back. But that was not their intention in battling with the apex demonic beast. Both of them didn't wait even a second to grab onto Kevin and tried to pull him away. Kane, who was some distance away, unleashed huge boulders at the apex demonic beast while they did so. Crack! The distraction helped and the apex demonic beast smashed at the huge boulders first. When it cleared the huge boulders, it glanced at all the awakened. Sheba, engulfed in the white flames, made them burn vigorously while the torrent of lightning strikes landed upon its body. The explosions from the lightning strikes didn't do much to Sheba, and Sheba's white flames were also unable to cause damage to Ashen through his dark glow. They, however, gave time for Ashen to slice his flesh off his body, getting him free from Sheba's bite. A slit opened behind Ashen, and he tried to step into the dark opening. Lucas saw what had happened to Rex and the others. He knew that he had to get rid of Ashen as soon as possible. It was time for him to use it. Lucas took out the test tube with Sherry's blood and used his Crimson Pact ability on Sherry's blood. "What?" Ashen exclaimed when his body stopped before he stepped into the dark opening behind him. Someone was controlling Ashen's mind and Ashen tried to fight it. Sherry wasn't around and there was no one else with the cognitive dominion ability. How was it possible? Ashen thought as he fought desperately against the control on his mind. Ashen had the answer when he saw Lucas walking towards him. How? Ashen couldn't comprehend how Lucas became stronger and had new abilities every time they encountered each other. But he couldn't do much except see Sheba lunging at him with its huge mouth with sharp fangs. Sheba bit onto Ashen's neck, absorbing the dark glow from Ashen's body. And after a few moments, the dark glow disappeared. It was then time for Lucas to finish it. Bladder. He punched the body of Ashen, with the airwaves from his punches rupturing through Ashen's body, making the blood and flesh splatter into the surroundings. Lucas knew it was not over, and he didn't stop until the body of Ashen broke into halves. Plop. Sheba let go of its bite and the upper body of Ashen dropped to the ground. Lucas followed up with his fist onto Ashen's head. His fist plunged through the head of Ashen, making it explode into a pulp of flesh. A familiar sound erupted in Lucas's mind. Ding! Slaughter points plus 1,000. Current slaughter points 18600/80,000. Host level 8. Current abilities 8. Lucas stood up with Ashen's blood dripping from his fist. He activated his Ether Realm ability and disappeared from sight. The apex demonic beast gave out a loud roar and it bent its knees, ready to lunge at its next victim. Most of the awakened were now injured and few were able to battle. They glanced intensely at the apex demonic beast, getting ready to unleash whatever they had left at it. Their hearts thumped as the apex demonic beast gazed at them with the soulless eyes of Risa. And when its gaze went away, they couldn't help but feel a sense of relief that they were not its next target. Finally, the apex demonic beast stopped its gaze at Riley. Whoosh! Riley saw a shimmer come towards him after the apex demonic beast lunged. He gritted his teeth, raised his fractured hands, and got ready to unleash his lightning strike at the apex demonic beast. Riley! Emma and Harrianto shouted desperately, but they couldn't do much. It was too fast for them. Their hearts were in their throats when they saw the apex demonic beast coming close. Thud! Out of nowhere, Lucas appeared in front of Riley and he blocked the attack from the apex demonic beast. The impact caused some hairline fractures on Lucas's arm, but they healed immediately due to his physique level. The apex demonic beast stumbled a few steps back. It gave out a roar and holes opened up on its body. Amber glow appeared from these holes as the plasma cannons gave out their plasma shots. Riley and the others gasped as the apex demonic beast got ready to fire its plasma cannons at Lucas. Bam! In a bright amber flash, the plasma cannons shot out towards Lucas. Riley, who was up close, tried to pull Lucas back behind him. Lucas could have just activated his Ether Realm ability and disappeared, but Riley figured that Lucas wanted to protect him from the plasma shots. However, Riley wouldn't let him. He knew that mankind needed someone like Lucas to fight against the demonic beasts more than him. Frustratingly, pain from his injuries and fractured arms stopped him from doing so. He saw to his surprise that a slit opened in front of Lucas and opened with a dark void inside it. All the plasma shots went into the dark void, and there was nothing but a moment of silence. It was Ashen's ability. Lucas was able to make use of two abilities at the same time through his Crimson Pact ability after it was at expert level of mastery. Growl. The apex demonic beast gave out a low growl at what had happened. It tried to lunge at Lucas with its claw-like hands and claw at Lucas's face. Plop! The apex demonic beast dropped to the ground, falling flat onto its face, giving out a loud thud. It struggled to stand up as there was now 6 times gravity on the apex demonic beast. Lucas took a step forward towards the apex demonic beast. The apex demonic beast tried to move its arms and grab onto Lucas's ankle. Growl. It gave out a frustrated growl when it struggled to move its arms. Lucas's shadow was holding onto it. Without any other options, the back of the apex demonic beast opened up with dozens of holes. Black pellet-like parasitic demonic beasts pelted towards Lucas. Lucas covered his body in a dark glow immediately. The black pellets upon contact with the dark glow disappeared into the void. Seeing what the dark glow could do, the apex demonic beast tried its best to get away from Lucas. Whoosh! It shot out mechanical snakes that were made up of mechanical parts and flesh from its body at Lucas. The same thing happened. When the mechanical snakes came into contact with the dark glow, they were gone immediately. And those that came into contact with the dark glow partially had the portion of their bodies that came into contact with it dissipated into thin air. Risa's now soulless eyes watched as Lucas used his hands and swiped at it. In an instant, Risa's head was gone after coming into contact with the dark glow on Lucas's hands. Flesh on the surroundings of the severed head twitched as the apex demonic beast tried to regenerate. Lucas raised his hands, and the temperature surrounding him dropped drastically to sub-zero immediately. Ice pillars rose from the ground, freezing the body of the apex demonic beast when it came into contact with the apex demonic beast. Soon, the body of the apex demonic beast was engulfed and frozen within a layer of ice. Lucas then used his hands and slowly swiped at the frozen apex demonic beast. Bit by bit, the apex demonic beast was wiped away by the dark glow covering his body. He only stopped when there was the demonic beast core left. The beast core was like a red crystal, twice the size of his fist and giving out pulses of energy. In the next moment, a familiar sound erupted in Lucas's mind. Ding! Slaughter points plus 1,500. Current slaughter points 20100/80,000. Host level 8. Current abilities 8. Everyone gave out a burst of cheers when they saw that it was over. Lucas, what would we do without you? Kevin cried out while sitting down nursing his wounds. Terry nodded and agreed. Indeed, we would have perished if not for your timely intervention. It was their heartfelt appreciation for what Lucas did. So many of their team members were so close to being dead if not for him. However, it was not over yet for Lucas. He quickly went over and checked on the status of Rex. Margaret's face was pale, and her hands were already shaking due to her loss of energy trying to save Rex. The white glow on her hands was now a sliver of what it used to be. Rex was still unconscious. Things weren't looking good for Rex. Margaret, I need some of your blood. Lucas came next to her and said. Margaret nodded her head, and Lucas activated his Crimson Pact ability to have her healing ability from the blood that was on her wounds. After doing so, he hovered his hands over Rex's body. White glow appeared from his hands, and it darted at Rex's body. The amount of white glow that Lucas was able to unleash was so much more than Margaret's that Rex's body was covered with it. Flesh surrounding the gaping wounds of Rex started to twitch and move. Tendrils began to extend with blood vessels and nerves. The gaping wounds then slowly closed, and the skin also began to grow back to cover the gaping wounds. Rex's pupils moved from side to side, and he slowly opened his eyes. Am I in heaven? He saw Lucas's face and gave out a sigh. Maybe not. Was expecting pretty angels instead. Emma, who was now beside Lucas, shook her head and uncharacteristically kept quiet. It was such a close call from losing Rex. Riley and Harrianto also came over to check on Rex, and they too gave out a huge sigh of relief when they saw Rex back to life with his wounds healed. Let me help you, Lucas said and proceeded to heal Riley's fractured arms. He knew that Margaret needed to rest and replenish her energy after all the work that she had done. After he was done with Riley, he helped to heal the wounds of the other awakened teams. When everyone had their injuries healed, it was time to arrange for their transport back to the East Battle Administration area. Great! I will report the progress to the leader. Sherry's voice spoke excitedly when she heard the good news from Terry. Go back to the East Battle Administration area, have a good rest, and wait for further instructions. After they were well rested, Lucas and the others moved out from where they were. The fog and the thick foliage obstructed the airplanes from descending low enough to fetch them. The journey back to their landing point was uneventful. The only thing that hindered them was the heat and humidity. It was, however, nothing much to the others, now that they'd successfully killed an apex demonic beast again. And of course it was with most of the effort made by Lucas. They went past the ravine, the trees with strange fruits, and back to their landing spot within half a day. As the familiar engine sound of the airplanes whirled in the air while they descended against the amber evening sun, Lucas and the others finally had the feeling that the mission was over. They boarded the plane from the platform at the back of the airplanes. Welcome back. The pilot greeted Lucas and the others with a huge smile on his face. Lucas nodded at the pilot and looked out of the cockpit window as the airplane slowly ascended higher into the air. The familiar blue glow to mask the airplane from the demonic beasts in the air engulfed the airplane. As the forest became further away, Lucas saw that the fog was slowly disappearing from it. A good sign for the East Battle Administration area. Hazel paced around in the hotel lobby anxiously. She was mumbling to herself and looked out from the entrance periodically. The other staff were grinning and started to tease her. Hazel, don't miss out on the opportunity this time. Men are simple. Be direct and let their body take over their mind. One of them said. The other staff next to her interjected and said, I wish my husband could still let his body do his work. All he's got is a yapping mouth left. All of the staff burst out laughing. Hazel shook her head at their teasing her. She was genuinely worried about Lucas and nothing more. Lucas was destined for far greater things than being stuck in the East Battle Administration area like her. Just as they were having a good laugh, beams of lights shined into the hotel lobby. Hazel used her hands to cover her eyes and glanced out through the entrance. The lights were from the headlights of a few armored cars that were entering the car park. When the armored cars parked and switched off their engines, a familiar figure stepped out from the armored car. Lucas! Hazel couldn't control herself and shouted. Lucas nodded at Hazel, acknowledging her greeting. The memory of her coming up to his room was still fresh in his mind. To his relief, Hazel stopped at that, and she hurriedly asked the staff to prepare for their return. Rex, who had also stepped out of the armored car, nudged Lucas and gave him a wink. I'll sleep early tonight and tell the rest to do the same. We wouldn't be hearing anything, I promise. Emma rolled her eyes, shook her head, and slapped Rex's back. You think everyone is like you? What do you mean like me? I'm pure and innocent, Rex said, showing off his biceps to Emma. The tattoos of his exes were now gone as they were destroyed by the Apex demonic beast's plasma cannons. Yeah, right? Emma said and walked towards the hotel lobby. Harrianto and Riley also slapped Rex on his back when they walked by. Don't do it. You'll break my spine. Rex stopped Lucas when he saw Lucas raising his hand. Come, dinner is ready soon. I believe you are tired, so the hot bath is being prepared as we speak. Wash up, freshen up, and come down for dinner after that. Hazel briefed them on what she had prepared, and everyone gave out a loud cheer. Felt great to be back in such comforts. Everyone had a lot of things to wash off from the mission. Terry glanced at Lynn as he saw her getting back to her room. It was so close, he thought to himself silently. Lucas submerged himself into the bathtub filled with warm water. He instantly felt the tension and fatigue going away. It had been a non-stop cascade of missions for him and the team, but he knew that there were more things to be done. Ashen, Leroy, and Risa were all killed, but the Dark Lord still lurked behind the shadows. They would have to finish off the Dark Lord soon. And lastly, there was the Apex demonic beast in the North Battle Administration area. With this thought in mind, Lucas summoned the system's information panel. He had enough slaughter points to upgrade one of his abilities to master level of mastery. And there was no question for him on which one to upgrade. He thought about upgrading his lightning ability, and more information appeared in his mind. Improvements in master level of mastery, SSS level lightning. Half the time to accumulate lightning strike. Half the amount of energy used. Unleash a Chrono Thunder Seal. Pillars of lightning infused with temporal law. Slows time for those who have been struck. Bend the nature of lightning. Upgrade ability? Y/N. Lucas said yes silently to himself in his mind. A surge of energy came into his body, and knowledge of using the new abilities also filled his mind. Lucas looked at his palm, and he conjured a cube made of lightning. He lifted his palm, and the cube went up into the air. And as the cube came down, Lucas caught it in his palm. That's useful, Lucas said to himself. His mind was coming up with different usages for his lightning strikes, now that he could bend the nature of it. After he was done, he tried to reach Sheba in his summon space. Curiously, Sheba didn't respond. It was like what had happened previously when Sheba had taken in too much power. Lucas frowned and figured that it was the same thing happening, and he'd have to wait for Sheba to wake up from its transformation. Knock! Someone knocked at the door, breaking his thoughts. Who's there? Lucas asked. Dinner is ready. Do come down and join us when you are done, the staff replied. The dinner was more sumptuous than the one they had before they moved out. There were too many dishes, so they were having it in the hotel lobby. Right in the middle of the dinner table was a roasted suckling pig, with all the other dishes like roasted goose, lobsters, crabs and prawns laid out beside it. Here you are. Rex greeted Lucas when he saw him and said, Take this. I've reserved the best portions for you. He passed Lucas a plateful of different meat. Thanks, Lucas said and started to tuck in. After so many days of energy bars and dried rations, it was definitely a refreshing change. All the other awakened were also busy with the food. Hazel and the other staff were full of smiles serving and helping them. They felt that the future for the East Battle Administration area was going to be bright after the Apex demonic beast was killed off. Life would be better from now on, all thanks to Lucas and the awakened. Kevin saw Terry and he wanted to banter with Terry about how he had helped Terry in the nick of time. Ho ho! He stopped when he saw Terry was behaving differently with Lynn. They were now standing so close together. Kevin narrowed his eyes and observed Terry and Lynn. His suspicion was confirmed when he saw Terry trying very hard to hold his hand with Lynn. It was a peculiar sight as Terry, due to his condition, had to go against his instinct and not wipe his hands with his handkerchief. Kevin felt a sense of Pyrrhic victory when he saw Terry's face cringe hard, making his features jumbled together. It's all right, Terry. You don't have to force yourself, Lynn said, and she pushed Terry's hand away. Terry wasn't sure what she meant by it, and he got anxious. Lynn burst out in laughter when she saw his worried look. No, I didn't mean it that way. Some things take time, she said as she shook her head. That's good to hear. Terry nodded his head. He was usually confident enough in other matters, but he wouldn't know what to do if Lynn had rejected him. Ring. The phones of all the awakened rang and they picked their phones up. Lucas saw that it was from Sherry, and he connected the call. The leader isn't awake from his hibernation yet, so it's best for you to go back to your hometown first. Take a small break and prepare for the next mission. I will notify all of you when I am done here in the North Battle Administration area. The reward for this mission has already been credited to your banks, Sherry said on the other end of the phone. Everyone cheered when they heard Sherry's instructions. They were so tired after taking on 2 apex demonic beasts in such a short time span. It was a much-needed break for everyone. Lucas nodded and thought about the South Battle Administration area. He wondered how the House, Rodney and Bundy were. It seemed like ages since he last saw them. Lucas. Time for a toast for the successful mission. Riley, Emma, Rex, Harrianto and Margaret came up to him and proposed a toast. When the other awakened teams heard it, they also joined in with a drink in their hands. Hazel and the other staff also joined in. Here's to the success of the mission and a bright future for mankind, They shouted and downed whatever they had in their hands in one mouthful. Hazel looked from afar at Lucas, thinking about the future she might have had with him. As her vision became blurry, she gave out a sigh, slapped her cheeks with her hands, and got back to helping serve the guests. Igor was looking at some of the statistics on the screen as he cursed out loud. Ashen and the other two better be back soon. He looked away from the screen and at the robotic arms that were injecting something into a petri dish with some flesh inside it. The flesh twitched uncontrollably after the injection was done. It thumped and extended out from the petri dish. However, it didn't last long, and the flesh turned brown after a few moments. And as time went on, the brown flesh darkened into a darker color. The flesh stopped moving and turned into a putrid pile of dark goo a few moments later. Igor cursed at what he saw. He didn't have much of the tissue and fluid from Athena left. To make it worse, his experiments weren't making any progress. Igor desperately needed new tissues and fluids from either a First Awakened or one of the apex demonic beasts. I swear to God if they don't return soon. He mumbled to himself and stopped when he saw the Dark Lord together with his secretary enter his lab. I've got some news, the Dark Lord said with his expressionless face. Yes, Dark Lord. I'm all ears. Igor bowed to the Dark Lord and said, Ashen, Risa and Leroy have all perished, the secretary of the Dark Lord said with her high-pitched voice. She adjusted her nerdy-looking spectacles before she continued and said, There isn't much choice left for us, and it's time for us to show our resolve. The Dark Lord has decided to go and take on the apex demonic beast or the First Awakened in the North Battle Administration area himself with me. We have reliable information that they are bringing the First Awakened in the North Battle Administration area out of hibernation. Igor didn't expect the news to be about the demise of Ashen, Risa and Leroy. He knew that the Dark Lord must be getting desperate for the Dark Lord to try and take on the First Awakened in the North Battle Administration area himself. His frown was caught by the secretary, and she said, While we are at the North Battle Administration area, you have something else to attend to. The secretary paused and passed a folder she had in her hands over to Igor. Igor opened the folder and his eyes opened wide when he saw the documents inside. They are indeed coming. Lucas glanced out of the cockpit's window as the airplane slowly descended. The sight of the woods outside the walls strangely brought him some comfort in his heart. Riley, Rex, Emma, Harrianto and Margaret were also all smiles when the airplane touched down onto the airfield. When they got off from the back of the airplane, they let out a huge sigh at the familiar sight. Everything seemed so distant yet comfortable at the same time. Welcome back. The soldiers at the checkpoint gave them no trouble and greeted them with smiles. Lucas was glad that the soldiers at the checkpoint weren't shocked anymore by the status on his ID. They knew who he was and what he had done to protect the South Battle Administration area. If they could, they would be pestering him for an autograph. But they couldn't as they were on duty. After they left the airbase, they hopped onto an armored car arranged by Rodney, the director of the Awaken Center. Soon, they were making their way back to their home. Lucas saw that the reconstruction of the damaged buildings, roads, and other facilities was going smoothly. The new governor appointed by the leader was hardworking as promised by the leader. Things were indeed looking bright for the future. You guys haven't been back for some time? The driver asked when he saw Lucas and others looking out of the window curiously. Yeah, it's been a while, Riley replied. You will be surprised how much has changed. The driver steered the car into a bend and said, We are now reclaiming areas outside the wall from the demonic beasts. Without the apex demonic beast around, they are not as aggressive and organized as before. It's great to be able to venture out of the wall again. That's great, Riley replied with joy, and so did the others. Lucas figured the same thing must also be happening at the West Battle Administration area and East Battle Administration area soon. Mankind might have finally turned the tide over. Finally, they arrived at their lair, and they stood outside marveling at the building with its pristine white wall behind the huge fences. Damn it, we need to clean the pool again, Emma exclaimed when she saw the pool was now filled with algae. Don't tell me you are planning to do it with your own hands, Rex said with a smirk. What? Isn't that what we usually do? We are rich now. Just get someone to do it and get it over and done with, Rex said with a grin. Sure. How about you find someone to make your dinner later? Emma said and stormed into the building. Rex quickly chased after her and said, What? No. Lucas had forgotten how soft the bed was in his room. He unpacked his luggage and lay down onto the bed. As he looked at the ceiling, he tried to contact Sheba in his summon space. However, there was still no response from Sheba. It was still in a deep sleep after absorbing much of the lightning and dark glow from Ashen. Some thoughts went through his mind as he rested on the bed waiting for dinner time. The words spoken by the apex demonic beast in the West Battle Administration area still lingered in his mind. What did it mean by the elders? Will they attack soon? Things were going great now, and he felt that it would be better for him to be cautious and get prepared. Secondly, what would the Dark Lord plan to do now? Since Ashen, Leroy, and Risa were now dead, it was also something he had to be prepared for. As he pondered, he slowly drifted into sleep. And for a very long time, one that was relaxing for him in a safe environment with trusted companions. Lucas woke up to the aroma of steak and spaghetti. He had slept for a few hours and he was already starving. After changing into new clothes, he went downstairs to the dining room. Rex was busy making phone calls with Harrianto scribbling on a notepad beside him. Wait, Cindy baby, trust me. I can buy you anything you want now, he said, but the person on the other end of the call disconnected. Cindy failed. That's 9 out of 9 times failure. Harrianto tried very hard not to laugh and said as he wrote down the result. It's their loss, Rex said with agitation, and he dialed the next victim. Riley was catching up on what had happened in the South Battle Administration area after they had left. Beside him, Margaret was pacing around on a call. Her face beamed with happiness as she spoke. Lucas knew it must have been Dr. Uva on the other end of the call. And speaking of Dr. Uva, he might be able to help with his question about the elders or even the background of the leader. Stop whatever you are doing and come have dinner. Emma appeared from the kitchen with plates in her hands. Harrianto and Lucas quickly offered their help. With their help, it didn't take long for the dishes to be on the dining table. They started to eat and savored Emma's culinary skills. The steaks were well done, keeping the tenderness and juiciness of the meat, while having it covered in a coat of aromatic, slightly charred layer. The sauce of the spaghetti was also flavorful. Being sweet and sour made it appetizing for the tender meatballs. So, what's the plan next? Emma asked as she munched on a meatball. Riley finished the piece of steak in his mouth and said, We need to get more demonic beast cores. The others nodded. They would have to get to master level of mastery as soon as possible to catch up with Lucas. Lucas nodded his head and said, I would need to upgrade whatever equipment I can. His dark matter vault armor had served him well so far, and it was long overdue for an upgrade. Money wasn't an issue for him anymore. And if it was possible, he would want to try and find something like Lynn's Claymore sword. Guess it's time for us to pay Director Rodney a visit tomorrow, Riley said in agreement with Lucas.